Father's Day, 30 witnesses. My son handed his father-in-law an envelope containing $22,000, a luxury vacation in Dubai. Then he turned to me, pulled a wrinkled lottery ticket from his pocket, and tossed it across the table. $1.50, Dad. I figured you could use some luck. The entire room erupted in laughter. I sat there invisible, clutching that crumpled ticket, while everyone celebrated his generosity towards someone else. 1 week later, everything changed. My phone lit up with 67 missed calls. I just smiled and ignored every single one, because I was preparing a call that would change everything. Hello everyone, thanks for being here. Before we continue, feel free to tap, like, subscribe if you'd like to follow along, and share in the comments where you're watching from. This story includes dramatized elements intended to support reflection and discussion. Any resemblance to real people or events is coincidental. If this kind of story speaks to you, stay with me. My name is Michael Harrington. I'm 55. 8 weeks back, during Father's Day celebrations at Edward Thornton's estate, surrounded by 30 dinner guests, I watched my son present his father-in-law with a $22,000 trip across Europe. Then he turned to me and tossed over a wrinkled lottery ticket value $1.50. Philosophy is what I teach at UNC. 3 decades of my career have gone into helping college freshmen grasp the concepts of Aristotle and Kant, an endeavor roughly equivalent to describing sunsets to people born blind. Still, it's honest work. The salary sits at $68,000 annually, enough to live decently in Chapel Hill, but hardly enough to turn heads. At places like Edward Thornton's residence, decent doesn't register. You need impressive. Without it, you might as well be furniture. Sunday evening, 6 o'clock sharp. That's when dinner began. Edward's home fits the real estate description of distinguished property. Perfectly 8,000 square feet of colonial brick and white columns, sprawling across 3 manicured acres. The type of place where you instinctively wipe your feet twice before entering. His dining room seats 20 with space to spare, but tonight he'd squeezed in 32 chairs, creating an atmosphere of forced intimacy, elbows bumping, multiple conversations bleeding into one another, everyone performing enthusiasm a bit too loudly. My seat landed somewhere in the middle, trapped between one of Ashley's cousins and some businessman, whose name escaped me the moment we shook hands. Down at the far end sat Hannah, my daughter. Mixed in with the younger set, Ashley's junior league circle, and their husbands in their expensive pastel shirts and watches that cost more than my car payment. Our eyes met briefly across the table. She offered a small smile, the kind that communicates, "I know this is hard, and I'm with you." That moment was the only genuine thing I'd felt all evening. Edward commanded the head of the table like a king holding court. 60 years of age, silver hair, perfectly styled, sporting the deep tan that comes exclusively from 4 weekly golf rounds. His fortune came from manufacturing industrial parts of some kind. Though he'd explained the specifics twice, and both times, the details slipped through my memory, and he'd stepped away from active business 5 years prior to concentrate on what truly matters. From what I could observe, this translated to making certain everyone in earshot understood his net worth. Michael, his voice cut across the dinner chatter midway through the main course. How are things in the philosophy department? Still teaching those kids to question authority? More or less, I replied. I'm sure it's fulfilling work, he said, his tone suggesting the opposite. Shaping all those young minds, passing along ancient wisdom. Of course, I've always maintained that real learning happens outside the classroom, building enterprises, generating employment, though I recognize that path isn't for everyone. Several guests chuckled, nothing cruel in it exactly. Just the particular brand of laughter that emerges when wealthy people make jokes and everyone else wants to remain in their favor. I chose silence. Years of experience have taught me that sometimes saying nothing preserves more dignity than any response could. Ashley occupied the chair next to her father, performing the role of perfect hostess. Her beauty carries that particular polish money can buy flawless hair, luminous skin, brilliant white teeth. She topped off Edward's wine and directed a smile my way, the kind you'd give a vague acquaintance from some charity function you can't quite place. Logan sat at Edward's right hand. My son. 32 years on this earth, dressed in a tailored blazer that probably carried a price tag exceeding my mortgage payment. Everything about his posture communicated ease, confidence, belonging, as if this world had been custom-made for him while I remained a perpetual guest. Dessert arrived, some elaborate lemon tart decorated with actual gold leaf, because apparently that's necessary, and Edward clinked his fork against crystal. "I'd like to pause for a moment," he announced, "to express gratitude for everyone's presence tonight. Family is everything to me." His gaze shifted to Logan, "And I'm fortunate to have such a considerate son-in-law." Logan rose to his feet, smile widening. "Actually, since we're talking about gratitude, Ashley and I have been planning something special." From his jacket, he produced an envelope, extending it toward Edward with a flourish. Edward opened it with deliberate slowness, extracting maximum drama from the moment. His eyebrows lifted. "Logan, this is remarkable. 3 full weeks touring Europe," Logan declared to the room. "Paris then, Rome followed by Barcelona. Business class flights throughout. 5-star accommodations at every stop. Everything's prepaid and arranged. You've earned this after a lifetime of hard work." Applause erupted around the table. Edward stood and embraced Logan, pounding his back like he'd just scored the winning touchdown. Ashley glowed with pride. Voices overlapped with praise. How generous, what a thoughtful gesture, truly wonderful. Edward's eyes found mine across the linen and crystal. "You see, Michael, this is precisely what I mean. Building something substantial, providing for family." I managed a nod. What other response existed? Then Logan's attention turned toward me. "And Dad," he said, reaching into his opposite pocket. He extracted a crumpled piece of paper and flicked it across the table. It skated over the white tablecloth and came to rest beside my water glass. A Powerball lottery ticket. "Cost me $1.50. Logan announced, his grin stretching wider. "Figured you might need some extra luck." Laughter detonated around the table. Genuine, unrestrained laughter this time. Someone gave my shoulder a congratulatory slap. Edward shook his head with amusement. Ashley's hand covered her mouth, but her eyes danced with mirth. I lifted the ticket from the table. Torn edges smudged numbers. It looked like something he'd discovered in his glove compartment that morning, when he remembered he hadn't prepared anything. $22,000 on one side, $1.50 on the other. 30 people bearing witness. My gaze traveled down the length of the table to Hannah. She wasn't laughing. She sat perfectly still, watching me with an expression I couldn't fully decode, something mixing sorrow and fury. She recognized exactly what had just happened, and she refused to look away. I folded the ticket carefully and tucked it into my jacket's inner pocket. "Appreciate it," I said, voice barely above a whisper. The conversation rolled forward without pause. Someone questioned Edward about his departure dates. Ashley launched into commentary about Parisian restaurants she'd researched, and I remained seated in that crowded room, surrounded by people feeling more absent than if I'd been alone. After the plates disappeared and guests began migrating toward the living room for coffee service, I excused myself quietly. The bathroom waited down a long hallway, all Italian marble and polished brass fixtures. I stood before the mirror and studied my reflection, gray threading through my hair, deep lines radiating from my eyes. A weary man wearing a decade-old jacket, clutching a lottery ticket that had been delivered as a punchline rather than a gift. I needed just 60 seconds. 60 seconds to recall who I actually was before I'd become invisible to my own son. 2 years ago, a drunk driver ran a red light on Highway 54 and nearly took Hannah from me. I got the call at 11:30 on a Thursday night. I was in my study halfway through grading a stack of essays on Plato's cave allegory when my phone lit up with a number I didn't recognize. "Mr. Harrington." The voice was calm, professional, trained to deliver bad news without inflection. "This is Officer Martinez with Chapel Hill Police. Your daughter Hannah has been in a serious accident. She's being transported to UNC Hospital. You need to come now." The drive is a blur. I remember running 2 red lights. I remember my hands shaking on the steering wheel. I remember thinking over and over, please let her be alive. The emergency room was bright and loud, machines beeping, voices calling out medical terms. I didn't understand the sharp smell of disinfectant. A nurse met me at the intake desk, her scrubs marked with someone else's blood. "Spinal trauma," she said. "Pelvic fracture, internal bleeding. She's in surgery now." I don't know how long I stood there. Time stopped making sense. Hannah spent 2 weeks in the ICU. 2 weeks of tubes and monitors, her face so pale she looked like a photograph of herself. I sat beside her bed every night listening to machines breathe for her, and I talked. About nothing really. Campus gossip, the weather. A student who'd argued that Kant's categorical imperative was basically just a vibe. I talked because the doctors said she might hear me, because I needed her to know she wasn't alone. Claire had been gone for 20 years by then. Breast cancer quick and brutal when Hannah was 8 and Logan was 12. So there was no one else. No partner to spell me at the hospital. No one to bring me coffee or tell me to go home and sleep. Just me and the sound of the ventilator, night after night. Hannah woke up on day 16. Groggy, confused, in pain so intense she couldn't speak without crying, but alive. The surgeries came next. 3 of them, over 8 months. Spinal fusion first, then pelvic reconstruction, then a second spinal procedure when the first one didn't hold. After that, 18 months of physical therapy, learning to walk without a cane, learning to trust her body again, learning to live with the kind of chronic pain that never fully goes away. She did it. She went back to nursing, back to her 12-hour shifts at UNC Hospital, back to the life she'd built. But recovery isn't free. The bills started arriving while she was still unconscious. Thick envelopes with codes and numbers that didn't make sense until you added them up. The insurance company covered $400,000. It sounds like a fortune until you see what's left. $188,000. I tried. I went to 3 banks. I filled out applications, sat across from loan officers in cheap suits who looked at my tax returns and shook their heads. $68,000 a year. No assets except the house my father, Robert, and my mother, Helen, left me when they died. A 3-bedroom colonial in a quiet neighborhood paid off. Worth maybe $550,000 if the market was good. The banks said no. Too much risk. Not enough collateral they could liquidate quickly. I was sitting in the hospital cafeteria on a Tuesday afternoon, staring at a collections notice when Logan found me. Dad. He slid into the chair across from me, looking crisp in a charcoal suit. I heard about the bills. I looked up. Word travels fast. Small town? He glanced at the paper in my hand. How much? $188. He didn't flinch. I can help. Logan, I don't... Family loan. I've got liquidity. You need it. Simple. I should have asked questions. I should have asked why, what the terms were, whether this was really the best option. But I was exhausted, drowning, and my son was offering me a rope. What's the interest rate? We'll figure it out. Family rate. Don't worry about it. 3 days later, I sat in Logan's downtown office glass walls, leather chairs, a view of Franklin Street. He slid a stack of papers across the desk. Just sign where I've marked, he said. My hands were shaking. I signed. I didn't read the fine print. I didn't ask to take the contract home and review it. I just wanted Hannah's bills paid. I wanted the collection calls to stop. I wanted to breathe. Logan transferred the money that afternoon. The hospital confirmed receipt the next morning. It wasn't until 2 months later that I actually read the loan agreement. I'd filed it in a drawer, telling myself I'd deal with it later. Later came when the first payment notice arrived. 38% APR. I stared at the number, certain it was a typo, but it wasn't. 38% annual interest compounding monthly. And there on page 4 in language I'd been too tired to read collateral listed as my house. The house my parents left me. The house I grew up in. If I defaulted, Logan could take it. I called him. Logan, this interest rate. Market rate for high-risk private loans. Dad, high risk, I'm your father. And I'm extending credit to someone 3 banks rejected. You want the money or not? Because I can call the loan right now. 30-day notice, full repayment. It's in the contract. I didn't say anything. That's what I thought, he said, and hung up. I made the payments. Every month, $8,500. I watched the principal barely move while the interest piled up like snow in a blizzard. Driving away from Edward's mansion after Father's Day, I thought about that ticket in my pocket. I'd nearly lost Hannah once. To save her, I'd put everything my parents left me at risk. And Logan knew exactly what he'd done. The house was quiet when I got home, the kind of quiet that used to comfort me before it started feeling like loneliness. I dropped my keys on the kitchen counter and stood there for a moment, listening to the hum of the refrigerator, the tick of the clock on the wall. No footsteps upstairs, no television murmuring in the next room, just silence. Claire had been gone for 2 decades, but sometimes I still expected to hear her voice. Hannah visited when she could, Sunday dinners, the occasional weeknight, but she had her own life now. The house was mine. All mine. And some nights that felt less like freedom and more like an echo. It was 11:30. I should have gone to bed. Instead, I wandered into my study. The study had been my father's before it was mine. He'd built the bookshelves himself, floor to ceiling, oak-stained dark. My own collection had filled in the gaps over the years. Philosophy texts, student papers, coffee-stained copies of The Republic. That's when I noticed it. A folder, manila letter-sized, sitting on the corner of my desk beneath a stack of books. I didn't remember putting it there. The label read SFA Client Files. Harrington Financial Advisory, Logan's company. I opened it. Inside were contracts, loan agreements, 8 of them, each one neatly printed, signed, and notarized. Borrower Daniel and Margaret Johnson. Loan, amount $53,000. Interest rate 39%. APR. The Johnsons. Our neighbors. 2 streets over. The next one, borrower Yasha Williams. Loan amount. $72,000. Interest rate. 40%. APR. Collateral bakery equipment, future revenue. Aisha ran a small bakery on Franklin Street. I'd bought croissants there a dozen times. The third was Dean Anderson's daughter. $38,000 at 35%. I kept reading. 5 more contracts. All the same. People borrowing money at rates that would bury them. Interest compounding every month, collateral agreements that gave Logan the right to seize everything. My son wasn't a financial advisor. He was a loan shark. I pulled out my phone and started taking pictures. Every page, every signature, every clause that allowed Logan to destroy people's lives 1 percentage point at a time. When I finished, I put the contracts back exactly where I'd found them. If Logan had left this here accident or arrogance, he'd made a mistake, because now I had proof. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my study until sunrise, thinking about all the people trapped in his system. People like me. People who'd had no choice but to say yes because the alternative was losing everything. The week that followed felt surreal. I taught my classes, I graded papers, I smiled at colleagues and pretended everything was fine. But all I could think about were those contracts. Saturday afternoon, I was at my desk with a red pen and student essays when my phone rang. Hannah, "Hey, sweetheart." "Dad?" Her voice had that teasing edge. "Quick question. Did you ever check that lottery ticket?" I laughed short, bitter. "Hannah, it's a $1.50 Powerball ticket." "You don't know that. Come on, check it, for me." "I'm working." "Dad." Her tone shifted firm now. "Check the ticket. The universe owes you one." I sighed. "Fine. Hold on." I walked to the coat closet by the front door. My jacket from Sunday was still hanging there. I reached into the inside pocket. The ticket was still there, tucked against the lining, wrinkled ink slightly smudged. "Okay," I said, walking back to my desk. "I'm checking." I opened my laptop and pulled up the Powerball website. The winning numbers from last Sunday were listed at the top. 07, 14, 21, 35, 49, Berfasiscow, Powerball 18. I held the ticket up to the screen. First number 7, match. Second number 14, match. My hand started to shake. Third number 21, match. Fourth number 35, match. I couldn't breathe. Fifth number 49, match. Powerball 18, match. All 6 numbers. "Dad!" Hannah's voice sounded far away. "What's happening?" I couldn't speak. I opened another tab, then another. Different sites. The numbers were the same everywhere. Jackpot $100 million. I set the phone down. I could hear Hannah calling my name, but I couldn't answer. I just sat there staring at the screen, at the ticket at 6 numbers that had somehow rewritten everything. The same week I discovered my son was running a predatory lending operation. The same week Logan had made it clear what he thought I was worth. I sat there for 2 hours. I didn't call Hannah back. I didn't tell anyone. I just sat in the room my father had built, thinking about 30 years of making myself smaller, of letting Logan and Edward treat me like I didn't matter. And then I did the only thing that made sense. I called my sister, Susan. Susan was already at Café Dryad when I arrived Sunday morning, sitting in the back corner where no one from campus would see us. She had 2 cups in front of her, one half-empty one, still steaming. She'd been waiting. When she looked up and saw my face, her expression shifted from curiosity to concern. "What happened?" I slid into the chair across from her and pulled out my phone. "I need to show you something." I opened the photo gallery and handed it to her. She scrolled through the images slowly. Her face went pale. 8 contracts, I said quietly, all with illegal interest rates. She looked up. "Michael, where did you get these?" "Logan left them at my house, in a folder. I don't know if it was an accident or if he wanted me to see them. Either way, I have them now." Susan kept scrolling. The Johnsons, Aisha Williams, Dean Anderson's daughter. 8 families drowning in debt that should never have existed. "Jesus," she whispered. "If there's more," I said, A lot more. But I need to know something first. You said on the phone that you'd been carrying something since Easter. What did you mean? She set the phone down and closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, they were wet. I should have told you sooner. Tell me now. She took a breath. Logan came to my house in April. He needed to use my printer, said his was broken. He left his phone on my kitchen counter while he was in the other room. She paused. A text came in. I glanced at it without thinking. And then I couldn't stop looking. She pulled out her own phone and opened her messages. She scrolled back through months of screenshots, then handed it to me. The conversation was between Logan and someone saved in Susan's phone as V. I scrolled up, message after message going back 8 months. Flirtatious at first, then explicit. Plans to meet at hotels, complaints about Ashley, how she was boring, how she didn't understand him, how she cared more about appearances than their marriage. And then I saw it. The message from 3 months ago? Logan. When the old man defaults, I'll have the house. Then we're set. Ashley's outlived her usefulness. Just a few more months. V. You're terrible. I love it. Logan. She'll get half in the divorce, but that's fine. The house alone is worth $550,000. Dad's too proud to declare bankruptcy. He'll just keep paying until he can't. And when he can't, I foreclose. Easy money. I stared at the screen, reading it over and over. My son. Planning to take my house. Calling me the old man. Talking about my financial ruin like it was a business strategy. Who's V? I asked, my voice flat. Vanessa, Susan said. His assistant. I looked her up after I saw the messages. And you didn't tell me. I wanted to. Her voice cracked. Michael, I swear I did, but I didn't know how. You were already dealing with so much, and I thought, I don't know what I thought. That maybe it would blow over. That maybe I was wrong to look. I'm so sorry. I handed her phone back. It's not your fault. It is, though. I should have said something. You're telling me now. That's what matters. She wiped her eyes. So what do we do? That's when I told her about the lottery ticket. Her reaction was almost funny, if anything about this could be funny. Her jaw dropped. She stared at me like I just said I was secretly an astronaut. You're kidding. I'm not. $100 million. 62 after taxes. She let out a long, shaky breath and leaned back in her chair. Okay. So, you're rich, and Logan doesn't know. Nobody knows except you. And Hannah? She knows I checked the ticket. She doesn't know what it means yet. Susan leaned forward, her eyes suddenly fierce. Michael, this is your chance. You can fight back. I know. But you're going to need help. I nodded. That's why I called you, and that's why I'm meeting with Richard Patterson tomorrow morning. Monday morning, I sat across from Richard in his office, a converted Victorian on Rosemary Street, all hardwood floors and floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. We'd served on faculty committees together for years. I'd always liked him, sharp mind, careful with his words, the kind of lawyer who thought 3 moves ahead. I handed him the folder, not the original I'd made copies, but every page, every signature, every clause that trapped people in debt they could never escape. He put on his reading glasses and started going through the documents. 5 minutes passed, then 10. He didn't say anything, just read occasionally, making notes on a yellow legal pad. Finally, he looked up. Michael, this exceeds the statutory cap. What? The interest rate. North Carolina General Statute 24-1.1 caps private lending rates at 30% for unlicensed lenders. Anything above that is criminal usury. He tapped the contract. 38%, 39%, 40%, all of these are void, legally unenforceable. I felt something loosen in my chest. Are you sure? Positive. And it's not just civil. Your son could face criminal charges. Usury is a Class 1 misdemeanor in this state. If there's a pattern, and based on what I'm seeing here, there is the Attorney General could pursue racketeering charges. What about my house? The collateral agreement. If the underlying loan is void, so is the collateral. He has no legal claim to your property, none. I sat back in my chair. No debt, no threat. No sword hanging over my head. There's more, Richard said. If he's done this to multiple people and you've documented at least 8, you could file a complaint with the AG's office. They'd open an investigation, subpoenas, audits, the works. Other victims could file civil suits for damages. He could lose his business license. How long would that take? Months, maybe longer. These things don't move fast. I thought about the lottery ticket in my desk drawer. about the screenshots on Susan's phone, about Hannah and Ashley and all the families whose names were on those contracts. "What do you want to do, Michael?" Richard asked gently. I thought about Hannah in that hospital bed, about the years I'd spent making myself smaller, quieter, less, about the truth that needed daylight. "I want justice," I said, "but I want to do it the right way." Hannah met me at the UNC hospital cafeteria during her lunch break, the same cafeteria where Logan had offered me the loan 2 years earlier. She was still in her scrubs navy blue with a hospital ID clipped to her pocket. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and she looked tired in the way that comes from 12-hour shifts spent keeping people alive. But when she saw me, she smiled, and for a moment the exhaustion lifted. "Hey, Dad." "Hey, sweetheart. We got coffee hospital coffee, which is to say it tasted like burnt cardboard, and sat at a table near the window. Outside, students hurried between buildings, backpacks slung over shoulders, living lives that felt 1,000 miles away from where I was sitting. "You sounded weird on the phone," Hannah said. "What's going on?" So I told her. Everything. The lottery ticket, the $100 million, the folder of contracts I'd found, Logan's illegal lending operation, the texts Susan had shown me, Richard Patterson's confirmation that the loan was void, that Logan could face criminal charges. She listened without interrupting her coffee going cold in her hands. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "Who knows?" she asked finally. "About what?" "All of it. The money, the investigation, everything. Just you and Susan, and Richard. Not Logan, not Ashley." "No." She nodded slowly. "Good. Keep it that way." "I plan to." She looked at me and I saw something in her face I hadn't seen before. Not just concern. Something harder, protective. "Promise me something, Dad." "What?" "Don't become like them." I reached across the table and took her hand. "Hannah, this isn't about revenge. It's about stopping him from hurting more people. I know, but there's a line between justice and cruelty. Just don't cross it." "Okay. I won't." She squeezed my hand. Maybe it's time they learned what happens when you stop making yourself small. 2 weeks after Father's Day, Edward threw a bon voyage party. It was Sunday afternoon, golden light filtering through the trees in his backyard. The atmosphere was different this time, less formal than the Father's Day dinner, more celebratory. People milled around the patio with wine glasses and plates of appetizers, laughing and talking over the sound of jazz coming from speakers hidden in the garden. 25, maybe 30 people. Mostly the Thornton side of the family, Ashley's cousins, Edward's golf buddies, people from their country club. Kevin and Angela were there with Jake. Hannah had begged off, claiming a shift she couldn't trade. Edward stood near the outdoor fireplace, holding court with an iPad in his hand. He was showing people his itinerary: Paris for 5 days, then Rome, then Barcelona. 3 weeks of 5-star hotels and Michelin restaurants, all paid for by my son. "Michael," Edward called out when he saw me. "Come look at this. Logan found us a restaurant in Paris that's been on the waiting list for 2 years. 2 years. But somehow he pulled strings." I walked over, smiled, nodded at the screen, showing some place with white tablecloths and gold chandeliers. "Impressive," I said. "That's what family does," Edward said, clapping Logan on the shoulder. "Takes care of each other." Ashley floated through the crowd in a white sundress, playing hostess. She refreshed drinks, laughed at jokes, touched people lightly on the arm. When she passed me, she smiled polite, distant, the same smile you'd give a stranger at a cocktail party. Someone asked about my summer plans. "Reading mostly," I said. "Maybe some work around the house." Logan laughed from across the patio. "Dad's not the traveling type, more of a books and quiet kind of guy." A few people chuckled, the kind of laughter that's more about filling silence than finding something funny. I'd heard variations of this joke my entire adult life. The absent-minded professor, the man who lived in his head, the guy who'd rather read Kant than go to a baseball game. It used to bother me. Now it just felt like background noise. An hour into the party, Logan cornered me by the grill. Ashley was inside getting more wine. Edward was showing someone photos on his phone. No one was paying attention to us. "Dad," Logan said, his voice low. "Quick reminder, payments due next month while we're gone. $8,500. You'll have it right." I looked at him, really looked at him, at the expensive watch on his wrist, the tailored shirt, the easy confidence of someone who'd never once doubted he'd get what he wanted. "I'll handle it," I said. "Good." Because you know what happens if you don't. I know. He smiled that same satisfied smile he'd had when he tossed the lottery ticket onto the table. Great. Just wanted to make sure we're on the same page. He walked away back to the party, back to his wife and his father-in-law and his carefully constructed image of success. And I stood there by the grill thinking about the LLC I'd formed 3 days ago, about the lottery claim I'd filed under that company's name, about the complaint sitting in Richard Patterson's office ready to be sent to the Attorney General, about all the ways Logan thought he had power over me and all the ways he was wrong. The party wound down as the sun started to set. People hugged Edward and wished him safe travels. Someone made a toast to family and adventure. Everyone raised their glasses. I raised mine too. Because in 3 weeks when Logan and Edward were in Barcelona and Ashley was home alone thinking she was in control, I was going to make a phone call that would change everything. As I drove home that evening, I thought about Marcus Aurelius, about a quote I'd taught dozens of times. The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. I'd believed that most of my life. I'd built my whole philosophy around it, rise above, be better, don't sink to their level. But the Stoics never had sons who weaponized family, who turned love into leverage, who looked their fathers in the eye and smiled while planning their financial ruin. Sometimes the best revenge isn't being unlike them. Sometimes the best revenge is just the truth. Logan and Edward left for Europe on a Tuesday morning. I didn't see them off. Ashley drove them to the airport before dawn. I woke to a text message at 7 a.m. Logan, payment due while we're gone. Don't be late. 3 weeks ago, that message would have sent anxiety through my chest. Now, I just deleted it. By 9 o'clock, I was sitting in Richard Patterson's office. He had everything ready. The LLC formation documents Piedmont Holdings, LLC, filed with the state 3 days earlier. The lottery claim forms listing that company as winner. And the complaint to the North Carolina Attorney General documenting Logan's lending operation across 8 families. Once I file this, Richard said, there's no taking it back. The investigation opens. It becomes public. I picked up the pen. My hand was steady. Not like 2 years ago in Logan's office when my fingers wouldn't stop shaking. Not like that morning in the hospital cafeteria when the world felt like it was collapsing. Steady. I signed every document. The LLC papers, the lottery claim, the complaint that would unravel everything Logan had built. You're sure? Richard asked. I'm sure, he nodded. I'll file the lottery claim today. The AG complaint goes out Monday. After that, things move fast. Good. 3 days later, Friday evening, Hannah came over. You're sure about this? She asked, holding up her phone. I'm sure. We stood on the front porch of 447 Oakwood Drive, the 3-bedroom colonial my parents had bought 40 years ago. The place Logan had been planning to take when I defaulted on his illegal loan. The evening light hit the brick just right. Hannah took the photo. Me on the steps, hands in my pockets looking at home. Behind me, the house that had survived everything. I posted it with a simple caption. Some legacies are worth protecting. Family home. Within an hour, people commented. Dean Anderson, beautiful home. Michael. Kevin. Looking good, bro. Angela. Your parents would be proud. I didn't respond. Just let the post sit there. A quiet line in the sand. At 6 o'clock, I turned on the local news. Breaking news from Chapel Hill, the anchor said. A winning Powerball ticket worth $100 million was sold right here in our community. The ticket was purchased at the Quick Mart on Franklin Street. My phone rang before she finished. Ashley. I let it ring 3 times before answering. Michael? Did you hear what? Someone in Chapel Hill won the lottery, $100 million. Huh, that's something. Pause. Then, Michael. You still have that ticket Logan gave you, right? Yeah, somewhere. Why? Have you checked it? No, should I? Her voice went up. Yes, check it right now. I'm eating dinner, Ashley. Mates, forget dinner. This is $100 million. I took a bite of chicken, chewed slowly. I'm sure it's not mine. Those odds are astronomical. You don't know that. Please just check it. I'll check it later. Later, Michael. I hung up. I sat at my kitchen table looking at my phone. Then I silenced it and went back to dinner. By Tuesday morning, I had 23 missed calls. 17 from Ashley, 6 from Logan, calling from Paris at what must have been ridiculous hours. I didn't call any of them back. Instead, I made coffee, got dressed. Drove to campus through the early morning quiet, watching students walk to class with backpacks and travel mugs, living ordinary lives that felt extraordinary in their simplicity. My 8 o'clock class was Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics. I'd been teaching it for 30 years. Usually it was a slog trying to get 19-year-olds to care about virtue when they were worried about exams and student loans. But that Tuesday was different. I stood at the front of the lecture hall and looked at the faces staring back, some alert, some half asleep, some scrolling through phones. Today, I said, we're talking about justice. Not the abstract kind, the real kind. The kind that happens when you stop accepting injustice as normal. For 50 minutes, I talked about Aristotle's conception of justice as giving people what they're owed, about the difference between legal justice and moral justice, about what happens when those don't align. The students were riveted. Afterwards, 3 stayed to ask questions. One wanted to know if it was ever right to break an unjust law. Another asked about the ethics of revenge. A third just said, "Professor Harrington, I've never seen you this engaged." I smiled. Sometimes the material becomes relevant in unexpected ways. I thought about Logan and Edward, probably having breakfast in some Parisian cafe. About Ashley alone, staring at her phone, wondering why I wasn't calling back. About the truth coming for all of them, whether they were ready or not. By Thursday, day 4 of their trip, I had 67 missed calls. I didn't listen to most of them right away. I let them accumulate like snow on a windshield notifications, lighting up my phone every few hours. It was oddly satisfying watching that number climb. Wednesday morning, I finally put the voicemails on speaker while I made breakfast. Ashley's voice filled my kitchen, starting cheerful and deteriorating rapidly. Voicemail. 1 Tuesday night. Michael, hi, just wondering about that ticket. Did you get a chance to look at it? Voicemail. 8 or Stas. Wednesday noon. This isn't funny anymore. Have you checked it or not? Michael, people are asking me. I don't know what to tell them. Voicemail, 15, Thursday morning. Where are you? Why won't you answer your phone? Do you have any idea how this looks? Just call me back. I poured coffee and moved on to Logan's messages calling from Paris. Voicemail. 2, Tuesday night. Dad, hey, Ashley says you're not picking up. Everything okay? Voicemail 9, Wednesday night. Dad, seriously, Mom's freaking out. He caught himself. I mean, Ashley. Ashley's freaking out. Just give us a call when you get this. I paused the playback. Mom's freaking out. He'd said it without thinking. A slip that told me everything about who mattered in his world. Voicemail, 14, Thursday morning. Look, if you did win, we need to talk strategy, investments, tax shelters, trust funds. This is complicated stuff, Dad. You can't just walk into the lottery office and cash a check. Let me help you. That's what family does. There was one from Edward too, his voice carrying that particular blend of annoyance and entitlement that rich men perfect over decades. Michael, it's Edward. Logan mentioned some lottery business. Give us a ring when you have a moment. Not please call, not if you get a chance. Just an expectation that I'd drop everything and respond because he'd asked. I deleted all of them and went to campus. That afternoon I met Susan at Café Dryade again. She was already laughing when I sat down. How many now? 67? Jesus, they're unraveling. Good. She leaned forward, lowering her voice even though we were alone in the corner. So, when are you going to put them out of their misery? Sunday night? Video call? 8 o'clock? I want everyone on camera. Logan, Edward, Ashley. All of them watching when I show them what I know. That's cold, Michael. That's consequence. She smiled. I'm proud of you. Thursday evening, I sent one text message to the family group chat Claire had created years ago, back when she was still alive and still believed we could be the kind of family that stayed in touch. Me, video, call, Sunday 8 o'clock, p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Everyone needs to be there. The responses came instantly. Ashley, finally. Yes, we'll be there. Logan, about time. See you then. Edward noted. I set my phone down and looked around my study, the room my father had built. The shelves filled with books I'd collected over a lifetime. The window that looked out onto the backyard where Hannah used to play when she was small. This was it, the moment I'd been building toward since I found those contracts. Since I learned what Logan had been doing. Since I realized that staying silent was costing me more than speaking ever could. Sunday evening arrived like the end of a held breath. At 7:45, I sat at my desk and arranged everything I needed. The loan agreement Logan had made me sign, with the 38% interest rate highlighted in yellow. Copies of the 8 other contracts, the Johnsons, Aisha, Williams, all of them. The screenshots Susan had taken of the text messages between Logan and Vanessa, including the one where he called me the old man and detailed his plan to foreclose on my house. A printout of North Carolina General Statute, Section 24-1.1, the usury law that made everything Logan had done illegal, and a bank statement from Piedmont Holdings LLC showing a balance of $100 million. I tested the screen sharing function 3 times. I'd never been great with technology, but I needed this to work perfectly. No frozen screens, no technical difficulties. Just truth presented clearly, with no room for excuses. At 7:55, my phone rang. Hannah. Hey, sweetheart. Dad. Her voice was quiet. Remember what I said. Don't become like them. I won't. This isn't about hurting them. Right? This is about stopping them from hurting anyone else. There's a difference. Okay, she paused. I love you. I love you too. I hung up and stared at the computer screen, at the button that said, Start Meeting. My finger hovered over the trackpad. Was this revenge? Revenge would be petty. Revenge would be taking pleasure in their pain. This was different. This was a father protecting his daughter, a neighbor protecting his community, a man who'd been silent for too long, finally speaking up because someone had to. This was consequence. At exactly 8 o'clock, I clicked Start. The screen divided into 3 boxes. Logan and Edward appeared together, squeezed into frame in what looked like a cramped hotel room. Behind them, through a window, I could see lights scattered across Rome's nighttime skyline. It was 2 a.m, their time. They both looked exhausted, Edward in a hotel bathrobe, Logan in a wrinkled t-shirt. Ashley appeared in her own box, sitting alone in what I recognized as their living room. She looked confused, glancing around like she was waiting for someone to explain why she'd been summoned. Edward looked irritated at being woken up. Logan looked impatient, running a hand through his hair. They were all waiting, expecting good news. Expecting me to tell them I'd won the lottery and needed their help, their guidance, their expertise in managing money I'd never had before. They had no idea what was coming. Hi, everyone, I said, keeping my voice calm and level. Thanks for making time. Logan leaned into the camera, his face filling the frame. Dad, finally. Did you check the ticket? I did. Everyone leaned closer. Ashley in her living room. Logan and Edward squeezed together in that cramped Roman hotel room, 2 a.m, their time both looking like they'd been dragged from sleep. And Ashley's voice was tight, breathless. All 6 numbers matched. For a second, nobody moved. Then chaos. Ashley screamed. Actually screamed, hands flying to her mouth. Logan jumped up so fast he hit his head on something off camera, a lamp maybe, and swore. Edward's eyes went wide, his whole face transforming from annoyed to stunned in half a heartbeat. $100 million, I said. $62 million after taxes. Logan recovered first. Of course he did. He sat back down, running both hands through his hair, that familiar grin spreading across his face like he'd just closed a business deal. Dad, that's incredible. That's wow. Okay, listen. He leaned toward the camera again, suddenly all business. This is serious money. You're going to need help managing it. Investment portfolios, tax strategies, estate planning. I can set you up with people, the right people. We'll get you diversified, protected. Michael, congratulations. Edward's voice cut through Logan's pitch, smooth and authoritative. He'd put on reading glasses, suddenly looking more awake. Quite a windfall. Logan's absolutely right. You'll need professional financial guidance. This isn't the kind of money you can just deposit in a savings account. Oh my God, Ashley was crying. Now happy tears, her hands still pressed to her face. This is amazing. Michael, this changes everything. You can retire, you can travel, Before we talk about money, I said, cutting through the excitement, there's something else we need to discuss. I clicked the screen share button. The loan agreement appeared on their screens. My copy, the one I'd signed 2 years ago in Logan's office with shaking hands. Every clause visible. Every line of fine print I'd been too desperate to read. Did you know, I said, keeping my voice conversational, that North Carolina caps interest rates at 30% for private lenders? Logan's face drained of color. 30%, I repeated. Not 38, which means this loan you gave me has been illegal for 2 years. The silence that followed was deafening. Edward frowned, leaning closer to his screen. Logan, what is he talking about? What loan? Ashley asked, her confusion genuine. I let the question hang for a moment, then I spoke directly to the camera. 2 years ago, Hannah was in a car accident. Drunk driver. She spent 2 weeks in the ICU, had 3 surgeries. The medical bills came to $188,000 after insurance. I went to 3 banks. They all said no. I watched Ashley's face change as she started to understand. Logan offered me a loan, called it a family rate. I was desperate, so I signed without reading the details. I scrolled down on the shared screen, highlighting the key sections. Old loan amount $188,000. Interest rate 38%. APR compounding monthly. Collateral my house at 447 Oakwood Drive, valued at $550,000. The text was right there, clinical and clear. No room for interpretation. Edward's face had gone from confusion to something harder. You charge your father 38% interest. It's a private loan agreement, it's not, Logan stammered. It's usury. My voice was steady. And according to North Carolina General Statute 24-1.1, it's void, legally unenforceable. Wait, Ashley was looking at Logan now, really looking at him. You've been charging your father illegal interest. Ashley, it's complicated. How is it complicated? Her voice was rising. Your father needed money to save Hannah's life, and you, saw an opportunity. That's not, how much has he paid you? I asked. Logan went silent. I'll tell you, over 2 years, I've paid him $8,500 a month. That's $204,000 on a $188,000 loan. And according to his amortization schedule, I still owe him $192,000. I let that sink in, watched Ashley do the math in her head, watched Edward's expression shift from confusion to fury. You've paid him more than you borrowed, Ashley whispered, and you still owe him money. That's how compound interest works when the rate is designed to trap you. Edward stood up. Even through the grainy hotel Wi-Fi, I could see the anger radiating off him. Is this true, Logan? I run a legitimate lending business. Legitimate, Edward's voice was sharp enough to cut. You just heard him say it's illegal. The statutory cap is 30% for unlicensed lenders, I said. Anything above that is criminal usury in this state. Your son-in-law could face charges. Dad. Logan started, but he wasn't talking to me. He was talking to Edward. Another slip, another tell. Don't call me that. Edward's voice was ice. Not right now. I could see Logan trying to regroup, trying to find an angle, a spin some way to make this sound reasonable, but there wasn't one. The numbers were right there on the screen. The law was clear. Ashley was staring at Logan like she'd never seen him before. This is why you wanted him at the Father's Day dinner, she said slowly. Why you insisted on inviting him to our house, even though you always said. She stopped. You were setting him up. You gave him that lottery ticket as a joke because you thought he was worthless. But really you were just waiting for him to default so you could take his house. Ashley, that's not. Is it true? Logan opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing came out. Edward sat back down heavily, pulling off his glasses and rubbing his face. Jesus Christ, Logan. Ashley looked at me through the screen, and for the first time since I'd known her, I saw something other than polite distance in her eyes. I saw horror, and maybe the beginning of understanding. Wait, she said slowly. You've been doing this to your own father. Logan's mouth moved, but no words formed. I looked directly into the camera. There's more, I said quietly. A lot more. More. Edward's voice was sharp. What more could there possibly be? I clicked to share my screen again. The 3 boxes on my monitor showed Logan and Edward in their hotel room in Rome, the city dark outside their window at 2 a.m. Ashley sat alone in our old living room, and me in the study my father built. I'm glad you asked Edward, I said. The folder appeared on their screens, SFA client files. 8 PDF documents, each one a contract. Each one a family. 8 families that I know of. I said, letting the first contract fill the screen. All of them charged illegal interest rates. All of them with collateral they can't afford to lose. I scrolled slowly. The names moved past like a roll call of desperation. Johnson family, loan amount, $53,000. Interest rate, 39%. APR, collateral, 2018. Honda Accord, Aisha Williams. Loan amount, $72. 0. 0, 0. Interest rate, 40%. APR, collateral bakery equipment plus future revenue. Dean Anderson's daughter, loan. Amount $38. 0, 0, 0. Interest rate 35%. APR, collateral engagement ring plus wage garnishment. 5 more contracts scrolled past. I didn't read them aloud. I didn't need to. The numbers spoke for themselves. Ashley's face had gone white. Wait, the Johnsons, they live 2 blocks from us. 3 blocks, I corrected quietly. Their daughter was in Hannah's Girl Scout troop. Edward's face filled his camera-frame jaw tight. Logan, what the hell are you running here? Logan leaned back in his hotel chair, arms crossed. It's just business. They came to me. They came to you desperate. I cut him off. Medical bills, emergency repairs, tuition. And you exploited that. They signed the contracts, Logan shot back. Contracts that violate North Carolina General Statute 24-1.1, I said. Every single one of them. I let that sit for a moment. Edward was no longer looking at the screen. He was staring at Logan. The investigation opens Monday, I continued. Subpoenas, audits, and possibly criminal charges for predatory lending. The Attorney General's office has all of this. Ashley's voice came through small and hollow. You've been doing this to our neighbors? Logan's face hardened. Are we done here? I shook my head. No, there's one more thing. I clicked again. A new set of images appeared on screen. Text messages, hundreds of them. Ashley leaned toward her camera, squinting. Then her hand went to her mouth. 8 months, I said quietly. That's how long these messages go back. The screenshot scrolled. I'd redacted some of the more explicit content, but the meaning was clear. Hotel names, dates, times, Raleigh Marriott Room 412, Durham Hilton, meet at 7. Can't wait to see you again. Ashley stood up her chair, scraping across the floor. Her voice shook. Who is V? Logan's face had lost all its color. Ash, I can explain. Vanessa, I said. His assistant, the one who's been helping him manage all these loans. I'd saved the worst for last. The final screenshot appeared, and I let it fill the screen. From V to Logan. When the old man defaults, you'll have the house. Then we're set. Ashley's outlived her usefulness anyway. Just a few more months. Timestamp. March 14th, 7:43. May p.m. 3 months ago. While Ashley was planning their anniversary dinner. While I was making loan payments that barely touched the principal. Ashley's breathing was audible through her microphone. I want a divorce. Ash, wait, Logan started. I want a divorce, she said again louder. Her camera went black. Logan turned desperately to the other box on the screen, the one showing Edward in the hotel room. Dad, you have to understand. Don't call me that. Edward's voice was ice. You're done. This trip ends now. I'm booking the earliest flight home. Edward stood, his phone already in his hand. I heard him barking in Italian at what must have been the hotel concierge. Voglio il primo volo per gli Stati Uniti domani mattina. Non mi interessa il costo. His screen went black. Now it was just 2 boxes. Me in my father's study. Logan alone in a hotel room in Rome at 2 in the morning, 8 hours, and an ocean away from the life he'd just lost. You just destroyed my life, Logan said, his voice low and dangerous. No, I replied calmly. You did that yourself. I just told the truth. His hands were shaking. We're not done. Yes, I said. We are. I reached for the mouse. For 30 years, I'd been the one left behind. The one dismissed. The one made invisible. Not anymore. Goodbye, Logan. I clicked end call. The screen went black. The room fell silent except for the old clock on the wall, the one my father wound every Sunday morning. It ticked steadily, marking time the way it had for 40 years. I sat back in the chair and looked at the dark monitor. My hands weren't shaking. My heart wasn't racing. I felt for the first time in 2 years like I could breathe. Hannah had asked me not to become like them, to stay better, to choose justice over revenge. I hadn't humiliated Logan for sport. I hadn't taken pleasure in his pain. I'd just told the truth. All of it. The loans, the families, the affair, the plan to take my house and discard his wife. Sometimes the truth is enough. My phone buzzed on the desk. Hannah's name appeared on the screen. Dad, are you okay? I looked around the study, the books my father collected, the desk he built, the house he left me, the house Logan would never take. I am now, I said. For the first time in 2 years, I meant it. Before I reveal what happened on that video call, the moment everything came crashing down, I need to know you're still with me. Drop a comment below. Do you think Logan deserves what's coming, or should Michael have handled this differently? Your perspective matters to me. And a quick note, the story ahead includes creative elements designed for emotional impact. Some details are dramatized for storytelling purposes. If that's not for you, no judgment, feel free to step away now. But if you want to see how this unfolds when 30 years of silence finally breaks, stay with me. Edward had disappeared from the screen. I could hear him in the background shouting in Italian, something about the earliest flight and immediately. Ashley was crying silently on her camera, her face in her hands. Logan sat frozen, his face the color of ash. The hotel room in Rome behind him looked suddenly small, the walls closing in. I took a breath. This was the moment I'd been building toward for 3 weeks. Not revenge, not cruelty, just clarity. I need to say 5 things. I began, my voice steady. And I need you both to listen. Ashley lowered her hands. Logan's eyes were fixed on the screen, unblinking. First, I said, the loan of $188,000 is legally void under North Carolina statute. I don't owe you a single cent. Your lien on my house has no legal standing. Logan opened his mouth to speak. I'm not done, I said. He closed it. Second, 447 Oakwood Drive remains mine. When I'm gone, it goes to Hannah. You will never touch it. Not the house my father built. Not the legacy he left. That's over. I watched Logan's jaw tighten. Good. Let him feel what it's like to lose something that matters. Third, the $62 million after taxes will be allocated as follows. I kept my tone conversational, as if I were discussing the weather. Hannah's nursing school debt will be paid in full. $2 million will establish the Harrington Scholarship Fund for first-generation college students at UNC. The rest is my business. Ashley wiped her eyes. She wasn't crying anymore. She was listening. Fourth, the Attorney General will contact you Monday morning. You'll need a lawyer, Logan, a real one. Logan's hands curled into fists on the hotel desk. You self-righteous Betsy, fifth, I said, speaking over him. From this moment forward, you and I have no relationship. Not financial, not familial. I will see Hannah because she is my daughter and my choice. You are just a stranger who happens to carry my last name. The room fell silent except for the faint sound of Edward's voice still arguing with someone in the hotel lobby. Ashley's camera shifted. She was standing now looking at something off-screen. At Logan, I realized. I can't believe I ever defended you, she said, her voice hollow. My father was right. You're all surface. There's nothing underneath. Logan turned to her, his face twisting. Ash, you don't understand. I understand perfectly, she said. I've understood for a while. I just didn't want to see it. Her screen went black. Edward's face reappeared flushed and breathing hard. He'd been running. His hair, usually perfect, was disheveled. Michael? He paused, searching for words. I'm sorry. I didn't know he'd done these things to you. I looked at him for a long moment. Edward Thornton, the man who'd spent 2 years making me feel small at every dinner, every gathering, every Father's Day. The man who'd mocked my profession, my salary, my life. You didn't know because you didn't ask, I said quietly. You assumed I was weak because I wasn't wealthy, but wealth and worth aren't the same thing. Edward went still. Then slowly he nodded. It was a small gesture, but for a man like Edward Thornton, it might as well have been a bow. You're right, he said. I owe you better than that. He glanced off screen at Logan, I assumed. I'll be home by Tuesday. We'll talk then, Ashley and I. He looked back at the camera. For what it's worth, Michael, I'm glad you told the truth. His screen went dark. Now it was just Logan and me, father and son. Except we weren't that anymore. Maybe we'd never really been. Logan's face filled his camera frame. His eyes were red. His voice came out low and dangerous. You think you've won. This isn't about winning, I said. You just destroyed everything I built. No, I replied. You built it on lies. I just showed people what was there. He leaned closer to his camera. I will never forgive you for this. I don't need your forgiveness, I said. I needed you to be better, and you weren't. For 32 years, I'd looked at Logan and seen potential, the smart kid, the ambitious young man, the son who was going to change the world. I'd made excuses when he cut corners. I'd stayed silent when he hurt people. I'd told myself he'd grow out of it, But some people don't grow. They just get better at hiding who they are. I looked at my son one last time. 32 years old, sitting in a hotel in Rome at 2 in the morning with his world collapsing around him. I've taught ethics for decades, I said. Justice, consequence. You should have paid attention. His mouth opened. Whatever he was about to say, I didn't want to hear it. I moved my cursor to the red button at the bottom of the screen. Goodbye, Logan. I clicked. The 3 boxes disappeared. The screen went black. The only sound in the study was the ticking of my father's clock, steady and certain. I sat back in the chair, the one my father built in the house. My father left me in the life I'd almost lost. And I felt something I hadn't felt in 2 years. Free. My phone buzzed. A text from Hannah. Dad, whatever you just did, I'm proud of you. I typed back, I just told the truth, that's all. Another text came through immediately. That's everything. I looked around the study, the books my father collected, the degrees I'd earned, the life I'd built on $68,000 a year, and a belief that ideas mattered more than money. Logan had called me weak. Edward had called me small. Even Claire, before she died, had sometimes looked at me like I was less ambitious, less driven, less enough. But I'd raised a daughter who became a nurse to help people. I'd taught students who went on to fight for justice. I'd lived 30 years in a house full of love and books and quiet Sunday mornings. And when my son tried to take it all away, I'd stood up. Not with cruelty, not with revenge, just with the truth. I powered down the computer. The monitor went dark. In the black screen, I caught my reflection, 55 years old, gray at the temples, wearing a sweater my father would have worn. I looked like him, finally. I stood, turned off the desk lamp, and walked out of the study. Behind me, the clock kept ticking. The house kept standing. And somewhere in Rome, my son was learning what it cost to mistake silence for weakness. I closed the door behind me. Monday morning, Vanessa burned it all down. I was grading papers in my office at UNC when Hannah called. Dad, you need to see this. She texted me a link. A social media post from an account I didn't recognize. But the photos were unmistakable. Screenshots of text messages, hundreds of them, far more than I'd shown on the video call. Bank statements showing transfers from Harrington Financial Advisory to personal accounts. Photos of Logan and Vanessa at restaurants, hotels, weekend trips to the mountains. The caption read, "When he promises you the world, but forgets to mention the wife, the illegal loans, and the fraud. Exposed karma." Within an hour, it had been shared 200 times. Within 3 hours, it was all over Chapel Hill. By Tuesday morning, the local news had picked it up. Chapel Hill financial advisor, under investigation for predatory lending, scrolled across the screen in the faculty lounge while I made coffee. Colleagues glanced at me. Some knew Logan was my son. Most were too polite to ask. But the internet wasn't polite. The comments section on the news article exploded. People I'd never heard of, families Logan had trapped, the same way he'd trapped me, began telling their stories. He lent us $28,000 at 42% interest when our son needed surgery. We're losing our house. My mother borrowed $15,000 for my father's funeral. He's garnishing her Social Security. We thought he was helping us. We didn't know it was illegal. The number kept growing. By Wednesday, it wasn't 8 families anymore. It was 12, then 17, then 23. 23 families. 23 desperate situations turned into profit. Richard Patterson called me Thursday morning. The Attorney General's office issued a formal announcement. They're opening a full investigation into Harrington Financial Advisory. How long will it take? I asked. Months, Richard said. But Michael, this is big. Criminal usury, wire fraud. If they can prove a pattern, possibly racketeering. I sat down in my desk chair. Racketeering. The word felt too large, too cinematic. But then I thought about 23 families. 23 contracts, 23 traps. Maybe it wasn't too large after all. By the second week, the legal machinery was fully engaged. Subpoenas went out for Harrington Financial Advisory's business records. Bank accounts were frozen. Logan's business license was suspended, pending the outcome of the investigation. I didn't call him. I didn't reach out. I'd said what I needed to say on that video call, and I'd meant it. We were done. But Ashley called me. 12 missed calls over 3 days. I let them all go to voicemail. I wasn't ready. Maybe I'd never be ready. The first message came Tuesday of week 3. Michael, it's Ashley. I don't know who else to talk to. About what needs to happen. About all of this. Can you call me? Her voice was small, shaky. Nothing like the composed, cool woman who'd stood beside Logan at Edward's mansion, smiling, while he handed me a $1.50 lottery ticket. I played the message for Hannah that night, over dinner at her apartment. "She's a victim too, Dad," Hannah said quietly, "even if she treated us badly." "I know," I said, "but I'm not ready yet." Hannah nodded. "That's okay. You don't owe her anything, but when you are ready, she might need someone who understands." I thought about that. Ashley, who'd looked down on me for 2 years. Ashley, who had laughed at that Father's Day dinner. Ashley, who was now learning what it felt like to be married to a man who saw people as transactions. Maybe Hannah was right. Maybe Ashley had been a victim longer than I'd realized. But forgiveness or even compassion would take time. By the 3rd week, the civil lawsuit started. The Johnsons filed first. Then Aisha Williams. Then Dean Anderson's daughter, the one who'd been forced to use her engagement ring as collateral. 23 families. 23 individual lawsuits, each one seeking damages, each one demanding justice. Richard called again. "The AG's office wants to talk to you. They need your testimony about the loan Logan gave you, the timeline, the terms, how he pressured you." "When?" I asked. "Next week. Are you ready?" I looked around the study, my father's clock, my father's desk. The house he'd built with his own hands, the house I'd nearly lost because I'd been too desperate and too trusting. "I'm ready," I said. Week 4 arrived like a storm breaking, and Logan hired 3 lawyers. I saw their names in the news: a criminal defense attorney from Raleigh, a civil litigator from Charlotte, and a crisis management consultant who specialized in reputation rehabilitation. It wouldn't be enough. Edward Thornton released a public statement. I read it on the university library computer between classes. "I am shocked and dismayed to learn of the alleged criminal activities conducted by Logan Harrington. I want to make clear that I had no knowledge of these operations and do not condone them in any way. My family and I are cooperating fully with investigators." It was clinical, distant, the statement of a man protecting his legacy. The Thornton estate, the inheritance Logan had been chasing, the wealth he'd married into the empire he'd thought would be his, was now permanently out of reach. Ashley called again that week. I still didn't answer, but I listened to her message. "Michael, I know you don't want to talk to me. I understand, but I need you to know I filed for divorce. It's final in 6 months, and I'm testifying against Logan. The AG's office asked me to, and I said yes." There was a long pause. I could hear her breathing. "I should have said something sooner, at those dinners. When my father made those comments, when Logan gave you that ticket, I should have said something. I'm sorry." The message ended. I sat in the study, my father's photograph on the desk in front of me. He was standing in front of this house the day they finished building it, my mother beside him. They looked young, proud, like they'd built something that would last. And it had. Logan had tried to take it. He'd used my desperation, my love for Hannah, my fear of losing the only thing my parents left me. He'd turned my crisis into his profit, but the house still stood, and I was still here. Friday of the 4th week, I made 2 phone calls. The first was to Richard Patterson. "I'm ready to give my testimony. Schedule it whenever they need me." The second was to Ashley. She answered on the first ring. "Michael, I got your messages," I said. "I'm so sorry." "I know," I said. "We'll talk, but not yet. I need more time." "I understand." Her voice was thick. "Thank you for calling back." I hung up and looked around the study one more time. Logan had 3 lawyers and a crumbling empire. Vanessa had burned his reputation to the ground. Edward had disowned him. Ashley had left him. 23 families were suing him. The state of North Carolina was building a criminal case against him. And me, I sat in my father's house, in my father's chair, surrounded by books and memories, and a life built on $68,000 a year, and a belief that people mattered more than profit. I had told the truth, that was all. And the truth had been enough. Outside my window, the oak tree my father planted 40 years ago swayed in the evening breeze. The house creaked and settled the way old houses do. Somewhere in the distance, I heard Hannah's car pull into the driveway. She was coming for dinner. We'd made it a Friday tradition. I stood, turned off the desk lamp, and walked toward the front door. The letter arrived on a Tuesday 6 weeks after the video call, handwritten on cream-colored stationery. From Ashley. I stared at it for a full minute before opening it. "Dear Michael, I was cruel. For 2 years, I believed the version of you that Logan told me, that you were less than us. I let that story shape how I treated you. The dinners, the comments, that Father's Day when Logan gave you that lottery ticket and I said nothing. I didn't know about the loan, about the affair, about any of it. But ignorance isn't innocence. My father raised me to measure worth in dollars. I'm starting to see where that leads. I'm filing for divorce. I've moved into my own place. It's the first time I've lived alone since college. It's terrifying, but it's honest. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know I'm sorry, and thank you for showing me the truth before I wasted any more of my life. Ashley, I read it twice. Then I called Hannah. She came over for dinner that Friday. I showed her the letter. She's trying, Dad, Hannah said after reading it. She was cruel for 2 years. I know, but she's choosing differently now. You taught me about Aristotle, people develop virtue through practice, right? Maybe she's practicing. I looked at my daughter, 28 years old, wearing scrubs from her shift her hair in a ponytail. You're smarter than I am, I said. She smiled. I learned from you. 3 weeks later, I texted her. Coffee Saturday at Café Dryade, 10 a.m. I'll be there. Thank you, Michael. Ashley arrived exactly at 10. She looked different, less polished, jeans and a sweater instead of designer clothes. No jewelry except simple earrings. She looked like someone who'd stopped performing. Thank you for meeting me, she said. I got your letter. I meant every word. She wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. I've been working with Richard Patterson. Did you know that? I blinked. No. I reached out a few weeks ago. I have a business degree. I never used it, but I have it. He needed help with paperwork for some of Logan's victims. I'm helping 5 families file motions. Pro bono. You're helping the people Logan hurt. It doesn't undo what I did, what I didn't do, but it's something. I studied her face. The woman who'd stood beside Logan at that Father's Day dinner, smiling while he humiliated me. But people weren't static. Aristotle knew that. Virtue wasn't something you were born with. It was something you practiced. The divorce? I asked. He's contesting it, trying to drag it out. She took a sip of coffee. My father cut him off financially. Logan's hoping I'll come back if he can just outlast me. Will you? No. The word was firm. I saw who he really is. I can't unsee it. We sat in silence. The cafe buzzed around us students studying the espresso machine, hissing. I was cruel to you, Ashley said quietly. Before I knew about the loans or Vanessa. I was cruel because I thought you were less than me. Because my father did. Because Logan did. That's not an excuse. It's just the truth. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to hear it. And because I need to say it. Out loud. To your face. I thought about all those dinners. All those moments when I'd felt erased. I'm not ready to forgive you, I said. Not yet. I understand. But I appreciate what you're doing. For those families. Her eyes were bright. It's not enough, but it's all I have. That's all any of us have, I said. The choice to try. When we stood to leave, she held out her hand. I shook it. It wasn't friendship, not yet, maybe not ever, but it was acknowledgement. Driving home, I thought about justice versus mercy, consequence versus compassion. Ashley wasn't innocent. She'd been cruel long before she knew about Logan's crimes. She'd stood by while her father diminished me, but she was trying to change, and maybe that was worth recognizing. Not forgiveness, not yet, maybe not ever, but possibility. Hannah had been right. People develop virtue through practice. Ashley was practicing. I pulled into the driveway at 447 Oakwood Drive, the house my father built, the house that was still standing. Inside, my father's clock ticked steadily. I sat in the study, looking at the photo of my parents in front of this house, young and hopeful. Logan had taught me what betrayal looked like. But Ashley reluctantly, haltingly was teaching me something else. That even people who'd been complicit could choose to be different. That redemption wasn't a moment. It was a practice. I wasn't ready to forgive her, but I was willing to watch her try, and for now, that was enough. 1 year after that, Father's Day, I stood before my Philosophies of 401 seminar and asked the same question I'd been asking for decades. What does it mean to live well? Wan bebamt boen wiaig sparon. 23 students looked back at me. Some took notes. Some leaned forward genuinely curious. One, a scholarship recipient named Maria, raised her hand. Is it about money? She asked. I smiled. A year ago, that question would have stung. Today, it was just honest curiosity. Aristotle said, Eudaimonia, human flourishing, comes from living virtuously, not from wealth, not from status, from choosing well again and again, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. A year changes everything, and nothing. I still live at 447 Oakwood Drive, still teach at UNC, still make $68,000 a year, though now it's a choice, not a necessity. The house looks different. Hannah and I renovated the kitchen last spring, new cabinets, new counters, a window over the sink that looks out at the oak tree my father planted. We redid the garden too. Tomatoes, basil, flowers my mother used to grow. The money sits mostly untouched. $62 million managed by a financial advisor Susan recommended. I take what I need for renovations for Hannah's student loans, paid in full, and for the scholarship fund. The rest just exists, a safety net I'll probably never use. I don't need much. Coffee in the morning, books, my students, Hannah every Sunday for dinner. That's enough. Hannah finished her nursing degree debt-free. She's a charge nurse now at UNC Hospital, leading a team on the cardiac floor. She's dating Jake Kevin's son, my nephew. It's new tentative, but she smiles when she talks about him. Every Sunday she comes over for dinner. It's become our tradition. Sometimes Susan joins us, sometimes Ashley. 6 months ago, her divorce was finalized. She works full-time as a paralegal, now helping Richard Patterson with pro bono cases. 15 of Logan's victims have gotten legal assistance through her work. She and Hannah have coffee sometimes. She texts me occasionally updates on cases or just to check in. It's not family, but it's something. A cautious friendship built on honesty instead of obligation. She doesn't speak to Edward anymore. That was her choice. He calls sometimes, she told me, leaves voicemails apologizing, asking her to come back. She deletes them. Edward Thornton, the man who measured worth in dollars, is alone now. His reputation in Chapel Hill's upper circles took a hit when the story broke. People still smile at him at the country club, but it's different, cooler. He's learned what it feels like to be invisible. I don't take pleasure in that, but I notice it. The Harrington Scholarship Fund launched last fall. $2 million managed by the university, named after my parents, Robert and Helen Harrington. It funds first-generation college students pursuing degrees in the humanities, philosophy, English, history, the degrees people say are impractical. The degrees that teach you how to think, how to question, how to live. 17 students so far, 12 last year, 5 new ones this semester. Maria is one of them. Logan took a plea deal. His business license was revoked. He pled guilty to criminal usury and wire fraud. The DA dropped the racketeering charges in exchange for his cooperation. 2 years probation, $500,000 in fines and restitution, 500 hours of community service, no jail time. Some people were angry about that. The victims wanted more. I understood. But Richard explained it to me. The plea deal meant the victims got restitution faster. A trial could have taken years. Logan would have fought every charge, drained every resource. This way the families got their money, and Logan lost everything else. He's working retail now, some cell phone store in Durham. He tried to email me twice, once last fall, once in January. Both times I blocked the address without reading them. Hannah asked me once if I'd ever talk to him again. I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe someday, but not yet. She nodded. That's fair. After class, Maria approached my desk. She's 20, the first in her family to go to college. Her parents are farm workers in Alamance County. Professor Harrington, I just wanted to say thank you. This scholarship changed my life. I smiled. That's exactly what it's supposed to do. I read about what happened with your son. I'm sorry. Thank you, Maria, but you don't need to apologize for that. She hesitated. My mom says the universe has a way of balancing things, like karma. I thought about that, about the lottery ticket Logan gave me as a joke, about $62 million. About standing in Edward's mansion feeling invisible and standing here now, funding students like Maria. The universe doesn't owe us anything, I said. But sometimes we owe ourselves the truth. She nodded slowly like she was writing that down in her mind. When she left, I packed my bag and walked across campus. The leaves were turning orange and gold against the October sky. Students hurried between classes. Someone was playing guitar on the quad. I thought about that Father's Day, about the crumpled $1.50 ticket, about Logan's smile, about 30 people watching while I became a punchline. A year ago, I'd felt erased. Today, I felt present. I stopped at Café Driad on the way home. Susan was already there, 2 coffees on the table. How was class? She asked. Good. Maria thanked me for the scholarship. Susan smiled. You're changing lives, Michael. I'm just telling the truth. That's all I did. Sometimes, she said, that's everything. That night, Hannah came over for Sunday dinner. We made pasta her recipe this time, with fresh basil from the garden. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I'd opened Ashley's letter 9 months ago. Dad, Hannah said, twirling spaghetti on her fork. Are you happy? I looked around. The kitchen we'd renovated together, the house my father built, the daughter who'd become my compass. Yeah, I said, I am. She grinned. Good, you deserve it. After dinner, she left for her shift at the hospital. I washed the dishes, dried them, put them away. Then I walked into the study. My father's clock ticked on the wall. His books lined the shelves. The photo of him and my mother sat on the desk, young hopeful, standing in front of the house they'd built. I'd saved this house, not with a lottery ticket, not with $62 million. I'd saved it by telling the truth. Logan had tried to take everything, my home, my dignity, my peace. He'd turned my love for Hannah into leverage. He'd built an empire on desperation. But the house still stood. Hannah thrived. 17 students had a chance they wouldn't have had otherwise. And me, I was still here, still teaching, still asking students what it means to live well, still trying to live the answer. I sat down at my father's desk and pulled out a notebook. Tomorrow's lecture was on Kant-duty autonomy, the categorical imperative. But tonight I just wrote one line. The universe doesn't owe us balance, but we owe ourselves the truth. I closed the notebook, turned off the desk lamp, walked out of the study. Behind me, the clock kept ticking, steady, certain, enduring, just like the truth. The Harrington Scholarship ceremony was held in Manning Hall, the oldest lecture hall on campus, the same room where I'd taught my first class 30 years ago. The wooden seats creaked, high windows let in afternoon light. A banner hung at the front. The Robert and Helen Harrington Scholarship Fund, honoring first-generation students in the humanities. I stood backstage with Hannah adjusting my tie. You're nervous, she said. I don't like being the center of attention. Too bad, she kissed my cheek. You earned this. The hall was full. Parents, siblings, grandparents, families who'd driven hours. Susan sat in the third row. Ashley was in the back, quiet. Dean Anderson took the podium. Today, we celebrate 5 new Harrington scholars joining the 12 continuing their studies. This scholarship represents belief that ideas matter, that first-generation students deserve a place at this table. He looked at me. Professor Harrington's quiet generosity has changed lives. Please join me in welcoming him to the stage. The applause was warm. I looked at the 17 scholarship recipients in the front rows. Maria, David, Keisha, Alejandro. Young people who worked night shifts and carried the weight of being the first in their families to reach this far. Aristotle said, "We become virtuous by practicing virtue. I began. We become just by doing just acts." I paused. Someone once tried to make me believe I was worth $1.50. For a long time, I believed them. Hannah's eyes were bright. These scholarships aren't charity. They're an investment in people who understand struggle, people who know that worth isn't measured in dollars. I looked at the students. You deserve to be fought for. Don't ever forget that. The room erupted. Dean Anderson stood. Then Hannah, then everyone. Hannah spoke next. My father saved my life twice, she said. Once from a car accident, and once from believing I wasn't worth fighting for. She looked at me. He taught me that integrity isn't about being perfect. It's about choosing truth even when it costs everything. Her voice broke slightly. These scholarships exist because my father chose truth over silence, and I'm so proud to be his daughter. After the ceremony, students surrounded me. One lingered, a philosophy major named Daniel. Professor Harrington, how do you know when it's time to speak up? I thought about 2 years of silence, about Hannah in the ICU, about standing in Edward's mansion invisible. When staying silent means betraying yourself, I said, when it means letting someone else define your worth, even if it costs you everything, especially then. Ashley stood at the back gathering her things. Our eyes met briefly. She gave a small nod, respectful, distant. She didn't approach. I didn't wave her over. Some relationships were built on quiet acknowledgement. She was doing the work. I was watching. That was enough. 2 days later, I taught my seminar, Justice, Mercy, and Family Ethics. I'd designed case studies drawn from real life, from my life. Case Study 3. A father loans money to his son during an emergency. The son charges a legal interest. Years later, the father discovers the truth. Does the father owe the son forgiveness? The class erupted. If family is everything, one student argued. Even when they exploit you, another shot back. Forgiveness isn't reconciliation, a third said. You can forgive and still maintain boundaries. I listen, guiding occasionally. Case study 4. A woman marries a man who commits financial crimes. She benefits but claims ignorance. When truth emerges, she helps his victims. Does that redeem her? She didn't know, one said. But she didn't ask, another countered. Willful ignorance is a choice. But she's trying to make it right now. It counts, I said quietly. But it doesn't erase what came before. Redemption is practice, not absolution. At the end of class, Emily stopped at the door. Professor Harrington, do you think people can change? Fundamentally? I thought about Ashley working with victims, about Logan who'd learned nothing, about myself finally learning to stand. Yes, I said, but only when they choose to. Change is always a choice. That night I sat in my study grading papers. The house was quiet except for my father's clock. 17 students, 17 futures that looked different because of a crumpled lottery ticket and a son who thought cruelty was clever. Logan had tried to reduce me to $1.50. Instead, he'd given me the means to change 17 lives, and counting. My phone buzzed, a text from Maria. Professor, I got accepted to Yale's summer program. Thank you for believing in me. I texted back, I always did. Now go show them what first-gen students can do. I looked at my parents' photo, young, hopeful, building something meant to last. Their house still stood, their son still taught, and 17 students had a chance they wouldn't have had otherwise. I didn't need revenge. I had something better. I had the truth, and I had used it well. Papers covered my desk that Saturday afternoon, midterm essays on Kant's moral philosophy, most of them mediocre, a few showing genuine insight. I was halfway through marking one particularly ambitious interpretation when Knuckles rapped against my front door. I wasn't expecting company. Through the window beside the entrance, I spotted Logan on my porch. 15 months had passed since that Father's Day dinner. 15 months since the video call that dismantled his carefully constructed world. Time had carved visible changes into him. He'd grown thinner, almost gaunt. The luxury timepiece that used to catch light on his wrist had vanished. His outfit consisted of ordinary jeans and an unremarkable jacket, nothing tailored, nothing expensive. He looked like someone who'd learned what struggling actually meant. I opened the door halfway. My body remained firmly in the threshold. Dad! His voice came out uncertain. Could we talk inside? Every instinct told me to refuse, to protect the peace I'd fought so hard to build. But curiosity, that persistent philosophical need to understand, pushed past my caution. I stepped backward, creating space. The kitchen table became our meeting ground. I deliberately didn't put the kettle on, didn't pull down mugs, didn't perform any of the small hospitality rituals that signal welcome. He noticed but said nothing. I need you to understand something up front. Logan began, fingers laced together on the table. I'm not here asking for financial help, not here demanding you forgive me. I needed to face you, to say certain things while looking at you. Silence stretched between us. I'd gotten comfortable with silence over the past year. I let it sit there waiting. Everything's gone. He continued, words coming faster now. Harrington Financial Advisory shuddered. My professional license revoked. Ashley changed her number. When I tried reaching out through mutual friends, they told me she's made it clear she wants zero contact. Edward's lawyers sent a cease and desist letter when I attempted to speak with him at his club. I'm stocking shelves and selling electronics at Best Buy for $14 an hour. My apartment is 400 square feet. I sold my car and bought that rusted Honda you probably saw outside. That Susan's been keeping me informed, I said evenly. I know where you landed. His eyes dropped to his hands, studying them, like they belonged to someone else. What I did with that loan, with your loan, specifically, that wasn't an accident or a business miscalculation. I knew exactly what I was doing. Every clause, every percentage point, every thread about the house. All calculated. You weren't mistaken. I agreed, my voice staying level. Mistakes happen in moments. What you did was architectural. You built a system designed to trap me. He winced like I'd physically struck him. After Mom died, I was 12 years old and furious at everything. You were drowning in your own grief. I could see it even then. You'd forget to make dinner. You'd sit in your study for hours, not grading papers, just staring at nothing. I felt abandoned even though you were right there in the house. That anger, it metastasized over the years, transformed into something uglier, I started measuring your worth by Edward's standards, by Ashley's standards, by every shallow metric I could find, and I despised what I saw. That context explains the psychology, I said carefully. It provides background, but explanation isn't the same as justification. You made choices every single day for years. Each contract you wrote, each payment you collected, each time you looked at me and smiled while planning to take everything my parents left me. I know. He finally raised his eyes to meet mine. I'm seeing a therapist now, Dr. Patricia Chen. She's the court-appointed one part of my probation requirements. But I've stayed with her even after fulfilling the mandate. We meet every Thursday evening. She's helping me understand how I weaponized my childhood pain, how I turned you into a symbol of everything I thought I'd escaped. The clock on my kitchen wall continued its steady rhythm, the same timepiece that had measured hours when Logan was young, when Claire was still alive, when this house contained something resembling family warmth rather than a combat zone. Is reconciliation possible? Logan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Any scenario where we could start fresh, build something new? No. The syllable hit him like a physical blow. His whole body recoiled slightly. What you constructed wasn't a series of poor decisions, I continued. It was a comprehensive system of exploitation that you maintained and expanded for years. You targeted me when I was most vulnerable. You targeted 23 other families in similar positions. An apology, however sincere it might be, doesn't unmake that history. So this is permanent. His voice cracked slightly. We never speak again. I never get another chance. I'm not declaring this permanent, I clarified. I'm saying the door isn't open right now. Perhaps in 5 years if you've genuinely transformed. Perhaps in 10. If your changes stem from actual growth rather than desperation over losing everything. If you've made meaningful amends to every family you damaged. Not just formal restitution, but actual human repair. If you become someone whose character has fundamentally shifted, then maybe we have a conversation. His jaw muscles tightened visibly. That's an enormous amount of time. Yes, I acknowledged. It is, but you didn't damage this in a day. You won't repair it in a day either. He stood slowly, chair, scraping against my kitchen floor. At the doorway, he paused, hand on the frame. The scholarship fund bearing Grandma and Grandpa Harrington's names, that's meaningful work. What you're doing matters. I didn't create it for your approval, I said, my tone remaining calm. I created it to honor them, and to help people who deserve opportunities, people who understand struggle without exploiting it. He nodded, once expression unreadable. Then he walked to that decade-old Honda with rust blooming along its wheel wells and drove away down Oakwood Drive. I closed the door, engaged the deadbolt, returned to my desk and the stack of papers waiting for my attention. That evening, my phone lit up with Hannah's name. Susan mentioned Logan came by the house. He did. How did it go? I considered the question carefully. Thought about the thin young man at my table who barely resembled the confident predator from 15 months ago. Thought about the son who'd tried to steal my home. Thought about the vast distance between those two versions of the same person. Complicated, I finally said. Did you forgive him? No. Do you think you will, eventually? I honestly don't know. Maybe someday. But not because he showed up and asked. Only if he genuinely earns it through sustained change over time. Hannah went quiet for several moments. That feels fair, Dad. Healthy even. Does it? You're not slamming the door in his face forever. You're just not opening it yet. There's wisdom in that distinction. I smiled despite myself. When exactly did you become wiser than me? I learned from watching you navigate all this, she said softly. The following morning brought my Sunday philosophy workshop, an informal seminar I'd launched the previous semester. Students attended voluntarily, no grades, attached just genuine inquiry into difficult questions. Today's scheduled topic, forgiveness and accountability. Can someone forgive another person without reconciling with them? Asked Jennifer, a junior philosophy major. Absolutely, I responded. Forgiveness operates internally. It's the release of corrosive anger that would otherwise consume you from within. Reconciliation operates externally. It's the rebuilding of relationship. That rebuilding requires trust, and trust must be reconstructed brick by brick. But what about apologies? Pressed another student. If someone apologizes sincerely, doesn't that obligate forgiveness? Making an apology represents a starting point, I explained. Not a destination, it's the first step on a very long road. Maria, one of the Harrington Scholarship recipients, raised her hand tentatively. What about family situations? Don't we owe family members more grace than we'd give strangers? I thought about Logan sitting at my kitchen table 20 hours earlier, about years of cruelty wrapped in the language of family obligation. His family relationship doesn't automatically entitle someone to unlimited access to your life, I said carefully, particularly if they've repeatedly used that access as a weapon. Love doesn't require you to accept abuse. Love doesn't demand you sacrifice your own well-being on the altar of family harmony. The room went still. Several students leaned forward. Boundaries aren't acts of cruelty, I continued. They're acts of clarity. They communicate I recognize your humanity, but I also recognize my own. I won't destroy myself to maintain a relationship that harms me. After class concluded, Marcus lingered by my desk. Professor Harrington, can I ask something personal? It is a balm de deum sic storis nis. Go ahead. That case study we analyzed a few weeks back, the father with the illegal loan from his son. That was your actual situation, wasn't it? I paused. The case studies were intentionally anonymized, but I'd known some students would eventually connect the dots. Yes, I confirmed. Your son came to see you yesterday, right? My eyebrows lifted. How did you know that Chapel Hill's a small town? Campus is smaller. Word travels. He hesitated. Did you forgive him? No. Will you forgive him eventually? I don't have an answer yet. He needs to demonstrate genuine change. Words alone won't accomplish that. Marcus nodded, slowly processing. My father struggled with addiction for most of my childhood. He's been clean for 2 years now. Keeps calling, asking me to let him back into my life. I don't know if I'm ready for that. Then you're not ready, I said simply. And that's completely acceptable. Healing operates on your timeline, not his. But what if he really has changed? What if I'm being unfair? Then he'll wait, I said. People who've genuinely transformed understand that forgiveness isn't owed like a debt. It's earned through consistent action over time. That night found me in my study with chamomile tea cooling in my favorite mug. My father's clock measured time in steady increments. The house creaked and settled around me in familiar ways. Logan had appeared at my door. He'd apologized. He'd requested a second chance. And I'd declined. Not permanently, but not now. Some doors close forever. Some open slowly over years. And some simply need more time than one conversation can possibly provide. I thought about Aristotle's concept of virtue as practice, about justice as balance rather than revenge. Logan was practicing something perhaps, attending therapy sessions, working an ordinary job, living without the trappings of wealth he'd once considered essential, experiencing consequences. But practice requires time, and trust once shattered as thoroughly as he'd shattered it doesn't heal because someone says the right words once. Maybe in 5 years, maybe in 10, or maybe never. And regardless of which path unfolded, I would be okay. Because my worth wasn't tethered to his redemption. My peace didn't depend on his transformation. I'd spent 2 years believing I was worth $1.50. Now I understood better, and that understanding was enough. Sunday dinner at my house had evolved into something sacred. Hannah and I had maintained this weekly ritual for over a year now. The kind of consistent practice that transforms a structure of walls and floors into something that feels like home. Pasta was tonight's menu. Nothing elaborate or pretentious. Hannah worked methodically at the cutting board, mincing fresh garlic, while I monitored the large pot of water beginning to bubble on the stove. Jake, Hannah's boyfriend, and my nephew, Kevin's son, moved around the dining room, arranging plates and silverware with careful attention. The atmosphere carried an ease, a comfort, the organic feeling that real family generates. So Ashley reached out. Hannah mentioned casually scraping minced garlic from the cutting board into the heating pan. She wondered if she might join one of our Sunday dinners sometime. Would that create too much awkwardness? I considered the question seriously. Ashley, who'd positioned herself beside Logan during that humiliating Father's Day performance. Ashley, who now dedicated her time to helping rebuild the lives Logan had systematically dismantled. But probably somewhat awkward, I admitted. But awkwardness isn't inherently negative. Hannah's face brightened. So you're saying yes? Let's plan for next month, I suggested. We can see how it goes. Jake transported the stack of plates toward the table. Uncle Michael, there's something I've been wanting to ask you. Go ahead. Do you experience any regret about bringing everything into the open the way you did? I reflected on the video call, on the 23 families whose suffering had been documented, on the expression Logan wore when all his secrets became public knowledge. Not for a single moment, I said firmly. The lottery winnings provided me with options, but speaking the truth that gave me something far more valuable. That gave me liberation. Hannah stirred the developing sauce, the garlic beginning to release its aroma. The majority of those $62 million just sits untouched in accounts, doesn't it? Essentially, yes, I confirmed. The scholarship fund draws from it. Your student loan debt is eliminated. The house received necessary updates. Beyond that, it's largely dormant. No sprawling estate, no luxury vehicle collection. I have no use for such things. I lifted the pasta pot and carried it toward the colander waiting in the sink. What I have is sufficient. Jake laughed, shaking his head. That response is so perfectly academic, so perfectly you. We gathered around the kitchen table for the meal. The identical table where Logan had sat just months earlier, requesting a reconciliation, I wasn't emotionally prepared to offer. I had this realization recently, Hannah said, expertly twirling pasta around her fork. That crumpled lottery ticket wasn't actually the jackpot at all. No. The genuine jackpot was watching you finally understand your own value. I lowered my utensil, giving my daughter my full attention. 28 years old now, holding a charge nurse position, constructing her existence according to her own principles and standards. You're absolutely right about that, I said, my voice quiet with emotion. Jake reached across to take Hannah's hand. Your father has achieved something like legendary status on campus. Students discuss his ethics seminars like they experienced some kind of profound transformation. Because they did experience transformation, Hannah stated matter-of-factly. 17 full scholarships already awarded and actively being used. 18 scholarships beginning next academic year, I corrected gently. We're expanding the program by one additional recipient. Following the meal, we migrated to the front porch, the same porch where Logan had appeared requesting entry into my home. The same porch where my father had spent countless Sunday evenings observing the neighborhood transition from daylight into darkness. Dad, there's something I need to tell you, Hannah said, her tone shifting to something more serious. I'm listening. For years I carried anger about the fact that Logan was your son while I was just also one of your children. Like he received some larger portion of your attention or affection because he arrived first, or because of his gender, or because he displayed more obvious ambition. Hannah, that's not... Please let me complete the thought. She smiled, and it carried warmth rather than pain. That anger is gone now, completely dissolved. Because I finally understood something crucial. Logan inherited your genetics, but I inherited your values, your principles, your approach to the world, and that inheritance matters infinitely more. My throat constricted with emotion. You've always possessed more than just my values. You've always held the central place in my heart. She rested her head against my shoulder in a gesture of affection and trust. I know that now. We remained in comfortable silence, observing the massive oak tree my father had planted decades ago, swaying with the evening wind. The tree had grown substantially older, more substantial. Its root system extended deep into the earth, much like this house, much like this chosen family. Susan telephoned yesterday, I mentioned. She and Kevin are proposing to host Thanksgiving at their place this year, a large family gathering with everyone. Will you extend an invitation to Ashley? Most likely, I said, assuming she'd like to participate. What about Logan? I contemplated that question carefully. About the gaunt young man driving a deteriorating Honda. About therapy sessions and expressions of remorse and the considerable distance between apology and authentic change. Not for this Thanksgiving, I decided. Perhaps eventually, but the timing isn't right yet. Hannah nodded her understanding. That seems reasonable. Jake excused himself and headed inside to begin washing dishes. Hannah remained beside me, our hands loosely intertwined. You taught me something important, Dad, she said thoughtfully. What would that be? That biological connection is something you're born into, but family, real family, is something you actively choose and construct. I smiled at the insight, and the most important choice is choosing to honor yourself. Exactly that. We occupied that space together as daylight gradually faded inside the house my parents had physically built, surrounded by individuals I had consciously chosen, and who had chosen me in return. Susan, who would help me recognize truths I'd been avoiding. Kevin and Angela, who'd remained steadfast supporters throughout everything. Jake, who treated Hannah with the respect and adoration she deserved. Ashley, who was engaged in the slow, difficult work of becoming better. Richard Patterson, who had evolved from legal counsel into genuine friendship. And always, Hannah, the daughter who'd rescued me, just as surely as I'd once rescued her. From inside the house, I heard my phone begin ringing. I made no move to answer it. Whoever needed to reach me could leave a message and wait. Dad. Hannah's voice pulled my attention back. Yes. Do you believe you'll ever reach a point where you can genuinely forgive Logan? Not just say the words, but truly release it all? Stayun, etont, and then ar. I considered the complex nature of forgiveness, what it actually meant versus what people assumed it meant. The crucial distinction between releasing consuming anger and rebuilding broken trust. I genuinely don't know, I answered with complete honesty. Perhaps if he engages in the difficult, sustained work of becoming different, if he transforms into someone whose character merits forgiveness. And if that transformation never happens, then my well-being remains intact regardless. I gave her hand a gentle squeeze. My peace of mind isn't contingent on his redemption arc. It depends on me consistently choosing honesty, choosing to value myself appropriately, choosing to protect and nurture this life I've built. I gestured broadly at our surroundings, the porch structure, the neighborhood gradually settling into nighttime quiet. What exists right here, right now, this is sufficient, I said with certainty. Hannah's smile conveyed both love and pride. Yes, it absolutely is. Later that evening, after Hannah and Jake had departed and the house returned to solitude, I settled into my study. My father's timepiece continued its reliable rhythm. The house produced its familiar sounds, wood expanding and contracting the settling noises that old, well-built homes generate. I opened my laptop computer and navigated to my email inbox. A new message from Maria, one of the Harrington Scholarship recipients, waited there. Subject line, thank you again. Professor Harrington, I've just completed my first week participating in Yale's competitive summer program. I'm the only first-generation college student in my entire cohort. The experience is intimidating in ways I didn't anticipate. But whenever self-doubt begins creeping in, I recall your words, "You deserve to be fought for." So I'm fighting for myself, for my family, for everyone who comes after me. Thank you for demonstrating what that kind of fight looks like. Maria. I closed the laptop and surveyed the study space around me. $62 million in managed accounts, a mortgage-free house, a daughter who was thriving personally and professionally, students whose life trajectories I'd meaningfully altered, and a son who'd attempted my complete destruction but had inadvertently provided me the resources to construct something profoundly better. I didn't subscribe to concepts of karma or cosmic balance. I didn't believe the universe maintained ledgers of justice. But I absolutely believed in the power of choices, in the reality of consequences, in the patient, persistent work required to build a life containing genuine meaning. Logan had attempted to establish my worth at $1.50. Instead, his cruelty had illuminated a truth my value exceeded anything monetary measurement could capture. I rose from the desk chair, switched off the lamp, and exited the study, leaving my father's clock to continue its faithful measurement of passing time. If you've stayed with me this far, if you've walked through every moment of this journey from that humiliating Father's Day dinner to where I stand now, you're likely asking yourself one fundamental question. Did winning $100 million fundamentally alter my existence? The answer contains complexity. Yes, in certain tangible ways, and no, in the ways that matter most profoundly. Allow me to clarify what I mean. I am Michael Harrington, 56 years old at this moment. I hold a position teaching philosophy at the University of North Carolina. I'm the father of a daughter whose character and strength fill me with pride. I own a house that I genuinely love. I've constructed a life built on conscious choices rather than circumstances. 2 years have passed since I stood inside Edward Thornton's imposing mansion on Father's Day, clutching a wrinkled lottery ticket valued at $1.50 while 30 assembled guests observed my son systematically humiliate me in front of everyone who mattered to him. 2 years ago, I had internalized the message Logan communicated so clearly that my worth fell substantially below everyone else occupying that dining room. Today, I possess a different understanding entirely. The money produced undeniable changes. I won't engage in false modesty about that reality. Those millions eliminated Hannah's nursing school debt, completely every remaining penny she owed vanished. The funds established a scholarship program, currently transforming 17 young lives, with 18 students benefiting beginning next academic year. The money protected and preserved the house my parents constructed at 447 Oakwood Drive. It provided me with options and choices I'd never previously possessed. But here's the crucial distinction. The part I need you to genuinely understand: the money didn't generate my sense of worth. It didn't manufacture courage where none existed. It didn't supply the strength required to speak truth. I could have won $1 billion, $10 billion, and I would have remained functionally invisible if I hadn't made the active choice to stand up and speak. The authentic jackpot wasn't the monetary windfall. The real prize was finally completely understanding that I mattered, that my existence held value independent of anyone else's assessment. So if you're listening to this story, if you're someone currently feeling invisible or diminished, or like your worth can be measured in loose change, I want to share what this experience taught me about reclaiming yourself. For years, decades, really, I permitted my family to treat me as though I possessed less value than others. Not because I actually was less, but because I accepted their treatment without resistance. I made myself smaller, so Logan could appear larger by comparison. I maintained silence to avoid disappointing people who were already disappointed in me. I smiled politely through Edward's calculated insults because I'd convinced myself that tolerating disrespect was what family membership required. But fundamental worth doesn't originate from other people's approval or validation. It emerges from knowing your own identity and refusing to diminish yourself for anyone's comfort. You are not worth whatever others claim you're worth. You're worth what you know yourself to be worth in your deepest core. And if you haven't discovered that knowledge yet, begin by refusing to accept less than you deserve. Start by asking yourself this clarifying question: would I permit someone to treat my daughter this way? Would I allow someone to treat my closest friend with this level of disrespect? If your answer is no, then examine why you're allowing them to treat you this way. Your worth is not open for negotiation, not subject to other people's judgments or limitations. Speaking up cost me my son, at minimum temporarily, possibly permanently. But continuing my silence was steadily costing me my soul, my sense of self. Every monthly payment I made on that illegal loan represented tacit agreement that Logan possessed the right to exploit my desperation. Every dinner I attended at Edward's house communicated that I agreed I deserved public mockery. Every time I said nothing, I was teaching Hannah that silence equaled safety, that invisibility protected you from harm. It didn't. Silence was gradual erasure, slow disappearance. Speaking up returned my life to me. It granted Hannah permission to advocate for herself. It gave 17 other families the courage to step forward with their own stories. Was the process difficult? Absolutely. Did it cost me relationships? Without question. But continued silence would have cost me infinitely more. It would have cost me myself, the core of who I am. This is what people don't understand about silence. It feels safe in the moment, but it's corrosive over time. Each time you swallow your truth, you lose a piece of yourself, until one day you wake up and realize you've disappeared entirely. I didn't expose Logan's illegal operations to hurt him emotionally. I exposed him to stop him from continuing to hurt others. This distinction matters profoundly. Revenge centers on causing pain, on making someone suffer because they made you suffer. Justice centers on revealing truth, on protecting future victims. When I displayed those contracts during the video call, when I showed everyone the illegal interest rates and predatory terms, I wasn't attempting to humiliate my son in front of his family. I was attempting to protect 23 families from losing everything the same way I nearly lost everything. Could I have been cruel in my approach? Certainly. Could I have gloated over his downfall? Absolutely. But I didn't, because revenge diminishes you, while justice restores wholeness. Revenge keeps you tethered to the person who hurt you, constantly looking backward, measuring your healing by their suffering. Justice allows you to move forward, to protect others, to transform your pain into purpose. That's the difference that changed everything for me. This leads me to perhaps the most difficult truth I've learned. Family is ultimately a choice, not an obligation. We're taught from childhood that family represents everything, that blood connections outweigh all other bonds, that you support family members regardless of their actions. But you don't owe loyalty to people who actively harm you simply because you share genetic material. Logan is my biological son, but he's not my family. Not currently, perhaps not ever again. Hannah is my family, Susan is my family, Kevin, Angela, Jake, they're my family. Ashley slowly and carefully is earning her way back into that circle. Richard Patterson has become family. They chose me, I chose them. That mutual choice creates authentic family bonds. Blood doesn't create family. Love creates family. Respect creates family. Showing up consistently creates family. It's completely acceptable to say I love you, but I cannot have you in my life. It's acceptable to say, maybe someday, but that day is not today. Boundaries aren't acts of cruelty. They're acts of clarity, of honest communication about what you can and cannot accept. For too long, I confused boundaries with rejection, when really they were about protection, protecting yourself, yes, but also protecting the relationship from becoming something toxic and unsalvageable. Ashley changed. She left Logan, actively helped his victims, rebuilt her entire life with integrity and purpose. I'm observing her earn her way back into trust, step by difficult step. Logan. The verdict remains uncertain. He offered apologies. He's attending therapy sessions. He's working at Best Buy rather than running a financial advisory firm. He's lost everything he once valued, but words come easily. Sustained behavioral change requires time and consistent effort. You cannot force other people to grow or evolve. You can only decide whether you're willing to wait while they attempt transformation. And it's completely acceptable to say, I'm not waiting. It's acceptable to say, I hope you change, but I won't sacrifice my peace of mind to observe the process. My peace doesn't depend on his redemption arc. My worth isn't connected to whether he becomes a better person. I'm okay regardless of the outcome. This realization liberated me in ways I'm still discovering. For so long, I'd tied my sense of value to Logan's perception of me, to whether I could somehow earn his respect. Now, I understand that his journey is his own, and my well-being doesn't require his participation. I keep that original lottery ticket on my desk currently, framed behind protective glass. Still crumpled and worn, still displaying those numbers 07, 14, 21, 35, 49, Powerball, 18. Students frequently ask why I keep it displayed so prominently. As a reminder, I explain to them, that the universe doesn't owe me anything, but I owe myself honesty and truth. $1.50. That represented what my son believed I was worth. $100 million. That's what random chance delivered to me. But my actual worth, it's not measured in currency at all. It's measured in the students I teach and influence, the daughter I raised with love and integrity, the house I protected from seizure, the truth I spoke when silence would have been easier, the boundaries I established and maintained, the life I consciously chose to build. 2 years ago, if you'd asked me to trade all of this, the peace, the clarity, the authentic relationships for Logan's approval and acceptance, I would have agreed without hesitation. Today I know better. Today I understand what actually matters. There are things in this world worth more than gold, more than millions. And I'm one of them. You are too. Never forget that. So, if you're feeling invisible right now, if someone in your life is treating you like you're worth pocket change, here's what I desperately want you to understand. You don't need a lottery ticket to reclaim your worth. You just need to tell the truth, your truth, even if speaking it costs you everything, even if people walk away, even if your family doesn't understand or support you. Because the alternative, staying silent, staying small, staying invisible, staying diminished, costs more in the end. It costs you yourself, your essence, your core identity, and you're worth more than that, so much more. I'm Michael Harrington, 56 years old, philosophy professor, lottery winner, father, survivor of emotional abuse and financial exploitation. I teach ethics for my living. But the most important lesson I ever learned didn't come from any book or philosophical text. It was this: the real jackpot isn't money or wealth. It's knowing your worth and refusing to accept less than you deserve. 2 years ago, I stood in Edward Thornton's mansion, holding a crumpled lottery ticket, feeling like nothing, like nobody. Today I stand in my father's house, surrounded by people I chose and who chose me in return, knowing exactly who I am and what I'm worth. And that knowledge is worth more than $100 million could ever be. That's worth everything. If you take nothing else from this story, please take this. You are not what they say you are. You are what you choose to be. And you deserve to be fought for, to be defended, to be valued. Even if the person doing the fighting is you, especially if the person doing the fighting is you. The oak tree my father planted 40 years ago continues swaying outside my window. The house he built with his own hands still stands solid. The clock he wound every Sunday morning still ticks steadily, and I'm still here, still teaching, still learning, still growing, still choosing. Every single day, I make the choice to value myself. And that choice, that simple, quiet, powerful choice, represents the real jackpot. Not the money, the choice itself. Choose yourself, you're worth it. Always remember you're worth fighting for. When I reflect on everything that unfolded in this family story, I recognize a man who remained silent far too long. A man who spent decades accepting treatment he never deserved, simply because he feared losing people who had already stopped truly seeing him as someone valuable. Don't follow my path in that regard. Don't wait for a lottery ticket to reveal your worth. Don't wait until someone exploits your vulnerability before establishing boundaries. Don't wait for rock bottom before choosing to honor yourself. Here's what this family betrayal taught me, and what I deeply hope you'll carry with you. God doesn't calculate your value in currency. He never has, and he never will. When I stood there feeling completely worthless while clutching that $1.50 ticket, God saw the identical man he'd always seen, someone worthy of love, dignity, and profound respect. The world will constantly attempt to assign you a price tag based on your salary, your possessions, your status. God never engages in that calculation. Your worth in his eyes remains constant, unchanging, independent of circumstances or other people's opinions. This understanding became my anchor when everything else felt uncertain. God provides us with wisdom to distinguish genuine care from manipulation. For 2 full years, I deliberately ignored every warning sign screaming for my attention, because I desperately didn't want to believe my own son would orchestrate my financial destruction. I prayed regularly asking for guidance, but I refused to listen to what was being revealed. God was showing me the reality in Logan's actions in those contract terms. In the way he smiled while planning to seize my home, I simply didn't want to acknowledge what I was seeing. Trust what God reveals through people's consistent behavior, even when accepting that reality causes deep pain. The truth may hurt temporarily, but deception damages you permanently. God honors individuals who choose integrity over comfort, who select honesty over ease. Standing up and exposing the truth cost me my son, at least for this present season. Perhaps that loss will prove permanent, but maintaining my silence was steadily costing me my soul, my sense of self, my ability to look at myself in the mirror with respect. When I finally chose to speak the truth publicly, God didn't abandon me to face the consequences alone. He surrounded me with people who recognized my worth. Hannah, who never wavered. Susan, who provided evidence when I needed it most. Even Ashley, slowly and carefully finding her way back to integrity. The lesson I've extracted from this painful family story: your silence protects absolutely no one. Not yourself, not the person harming you, not the other potential victims waiting in line behind you. Your boundaries honor everyone involved, but most especially they honor yourself. Your worth isn't subject to negotiation and bargaining or compromise, and anyone who treats your value as something flexible and conditional doesn't deserve continued access to your life. Choose yourself, not in a selfish, self-absorbed manner, but faithfully, deliberately. The same way God already chose you before you were born, before you accomplished anything, before you proved yourself worthy. My personal conviction forged through this experience is that family betrayal cuts deeper than any other kind, precisely because it violates trust. We're taught from childhood should be absolute and unbreakable. We're conditioned to believe that blood relationships carry inherent sanctity, that family members deserve unlimited chances regardless of their behavior. But I've learned that genuine family is defined by actions rather than genetics. The people who stood beside me when everything collapsed weren't all blood relatives. Some were, many weren't. What united them was choice, loyalty, and authentic care. I also believe strongly that waiting for external validation before claiming your worth is surrendering your power to people who may never grant that validation. Logan could live another 50 years and never acknowledge what he did to me. Edward could reach his deathbed without ever respecting my profession or my choices. If I'd made my peace contingent on their approval, I'd still be trapped in that cycle of diminishment and invisibility. Liberation came when I stopped asking permission to matter. Another conviction I hold: boundaries aren't barriers to relationship. They're the foundation that makes healthy relationship possible. For years, I confused boundaries with rejection, believing that loving someone meant accepting whatever treatment they offered. Now, I understand that boundaries communicate respect for both parties. They say I value you enough to be honest about what I can accept, and I value myself enough to maintain standards. Without boundaries, relationships devolve into exploitation dressed up as obligation. I need you to understand something crucial. This family story didn't require a lottery jackpot to reach resolution. The money provided options, certainly. It funded scholarships and eliminated debt and protected my home. But the actual transformation the moment I reclaimed myself happened before I checked those numbers. It happened when I looked at those illegal contracts and decided to document them, when I listened to Susan explain what she'd discovered, when I called Richard Patterson and said I was ready to file complaints. The lottery winnings amplified my choices, but they didn't create my courage. That came from finally believing I deserved better. If you're currently experiencing family betrayal, if someone close to you is treating you like you're disposable or exploitable, please hear this. You don't need perfect evidence before trusting your instincts. You don't need everyone to believe you before you believe yourself. You don't need permission from the person harming you before you establish protection. Start where you are. Start with one boundary. Start with one honest conversation. Start with one phone call to someone who might help. The journey from invisible to visible, from exploited to empowered, begins with a single step of choosing yourself. This journey isn't finished for me. Logan may eventually do the genuine work of transformation, or he may not. Ashley may fully earn her way back into trusted relationship, or our connection may remain cordial but distant. Edward may experience a profound shift in values, or he may die believing that worth equals wealth. I don't control any of those outcomes. What I control is my daily choice to honor myself, to maintain boundaries, to speak truth, to build a life reflecting my values rather than other people's expectations. That's the real jackpot, not the money, the choice itself. If this family story resonated with you, if you recognized yourself in any part of this journey, I deeply appreciate you leaving a comment below. Share your thoughts, your own experiences, or simply let me know you were here. Your engagement helps this message reach others who desperately need to hear it. If you found value here, please consider subscribing to the channel so you don't miss future stories. And if you know someone currently struggling with similar dynamics, someone who needs permission to choose themselves, share this with them. Sometimes we need to hear someone else's story before we can change our own. I'm genuinely grateful you've stayed with me through this entire journey, from that humiliating Father's Day dinner, through the investigation, the confrontations, the legal proceedings, and finally to this place of hard-won peace. Your presence matters. One final note before we part. The narratives I share are constructed with educational and reflective purposes in mind, incorporating creative elements to illuminate broader lessons about relationships, boundaries, and self-worth. If this storytelling approach doesn't serve your needs or preferences, I completely understand. Please feel free to explore other content that speaks more directly to your situation. But if this helped even slightly, then it accomplished exactly what I hoped. You're worth more than you currently know. You're worth fighting for. And sometimes the person who needs to fight for you most fiercely is you. Choose yourself. God already did.